So I'm not saying don't play young youth sports, organized sports, or anything like that, but I definitely think there's an element that's missing when you make every team you pay for.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Welcome to Cleats, Chaos, and Coffee, the podcast for the sports mom, the underdog, the ride or die sideline warriors who have had their hearts broken, their wallets drained, and their schedules hijacked by youth and college sports. All right. Welcome, Dave, and thanks for being here as a former player, as a respected trainer, as a director of residency, as a current coach. Um, we are so excited to have you here today, and we are going to be discussing what changes have been in youth sports from when you played to now, how to raise kids in the game without burning them out, and what one wish do you knew that parents knew before going into sports? Hey, David. Thanks for coming. You are our special guest today. And David is on because he is a former player, a trainer, a coach. I don't think there's much you haven't done, Dave, is there? Uh,
Not a whole lot I haven't done. That's the truth.
so you were the perfect guest for this. And today, what we're going to be talking about is the youth sports section and your experience with the coaching and the training. And you are a father of two now. So I am loving that
Three,
aspect of things. Three,
three.
that's right. Sorry. Three.
That's right.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah,
trouble.
yeah.
So that will actually give us a lot of perspective. So you are the first perfect guest. We're going to go and talk about
No pressure at
no
all to be,
pressure, right? We're going to talk about what's changed in youth sports, how to raise kids in the game without burning them out, and what you wish parents knew about this whole process. So, when you look back in youth sports to about from where you were to where you are today, what do you find is the biggest difference?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I got the baby face. Most people think I'm young, but it's been a long time. You know, the biggest difference I think, and again, this topic is a very hot topic right now. An ongoing thing, and I find myself often taking both sides, which is very difficult, right? Because there's so many pros and cons, but I mean, the biggest difference I see is that, there doesn't seem to be room for any unorganized sports, if that makes sense. When I grew up, it was you go to the park and play, you pick up basketball here, pick up baseball. There were football games you could play, some inappropriate names. There was where you throw the ball up in the air and you tackle the guy who gets the ball. You all know what game that is. I don't know if there's an appropriate term for that game. I only know the one that's inappropriate, so I'm not gonna say that. Smear the guy with the football, that's what we're gonna call it. Um, but, I don't see that, and I don't know if that's in the area that I'm in. I don't know if it's just the era that we're in, but, it seems to be that everything is organized now, and, that has its pluses and minuses, I mean, when I was growing up, you had to be the best to be on that travel team. You know what I mean? Like there was only so many quote unquote AAU teams. And if you weren't one of the top tier guys, you weren't going to be on that team. So you had to go play pickup. That was your only way. Maybe play rec, that was your only way to get better. These days now there's 100 AAU quote unquote teams, and you just long as you can afford it and you're going to be able to play.
So that's my question. So, are you saying that you think it's better that there are different options now, or do you think it's better that there was a different system as far as how a kid could get into sports?
I mean, that's what I mean. I find myself conflicted because there's pros and cons to it. There's pros in the fact that it's gonna open that opportunity for more people to play more organized stuff, and maybe kids who weren't quite good enough that couldn't get on the teams before, now they're getting an opportunity to play organized sports and do that kind of thing. But it's also gonna hurt them in the fact that they're gonna make every team they've ever played for because you're paying for it. You know what I mean? So now, oh, well, I played on all of these travel teams my whole life, and then I get to junior high and I have to try out for the varsity team and I don't make it. You know what I mean? We've experienced that, right?
So basically, it's almost kind of like a feel for pay to play sometimes, an element of pay to play.
Yeah, and it almost becomes like you're I'm gonna sound cynical here, but you're getting manufactured friendships. You know, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go be on this team because they're going to have to be my friends. We're on the same team kind of thing. Whereas, when I had to go out, I just walked up to strangers and was like, "Hey, do you want to play?" Kind of thing. There's a different element to that, and there's a different element of growth to that and just confidence by being able to go out there and just do this on my own versus hey, mom and dad signed me up for this team. Now I'm going to know these guys and then we're going to, potentially be friends. We may not even live in the same area. We may not be in the same area, whatever. So there's pros and cons. Yeah, I could see both sides. I mean, and like you said, I'm a father of three, but two little boys now who are going through this and I'm experiencing the same thing. I want them, I don't live in an area like I did when I grew up where I could just walk to the park. I don't live in an area where they can do that. So I need to be able to sign them up for these teams and like actually interact with other kids. The only place you really see that now is they still get it at recess, right? I see my kid, he'll come home from school and be like, oh, yeah, we played soccer all day at recess today, and we played football and tag football and this and that. But that's such a limited kind of experience to it, but outside of that, where are they getting that pickup game like we used to have?
Right, you're right. Actually, my kids, I'm trying to think back. My kids didn't really have that unless you went to the Y, unless you went to your local community center just to kind of, be with a group of people that said, "Hey, I'm going to meet here and we're all going to play."
And again, I still go to that same Y where I used to train your kids, which it didn't used to be at the Y at the time, but now it is. It's the same place, and there's a gym in there, and I was worked there for 6 years as an exercise physiologist, but I still have been a member that whole time for the 16 years. I don't see it. That gym used to be full of kids after school during the summertime. And, I mean, there's still some that come in, they'll play some pickup, but it's not like it used to be. I mean, you used to have to fight to kind of get on that court. And now it's just,
That's interesting. That is interesting. I wonder why.
it could be area specific. I mean, we do live kind of in a retirement community. So it's not like when I lived in Charleston in the, North Charleston area where there was a lot more kids and a lot more public stuff than, Pawleys Island is a little ritzy.
It's a little, yeah. You can't necessarily just walk there either. You've got to be driving or have those parents drive you around. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that the money aspect, I do think, and this is what I'm hearing from a lot of parents, actually kind of working on something, and I'll touch base with you at another time. But that is an aspect that I'm running into with a lot of parents. Are like, great, my kid can play, but we necessarily can't afford to be on this AAU team, or we can't afford to be on this high level team. What would you say to that parent?
I would say 2 things really. One, if you're only doing it one time, it should be affordable. I mean, not to say that, everybody should be able to afford this stuff, but my opinion is where it becomes unaffordable is when they're doing it year round and it's multiple teams and multiple travel teams, it's just nonstop. That's where I see the parents going, this is not sustainable because it's just you're paying for this team, then the next team, and then the next team. And God forbid that team does really well. Now they want to go to state or nationals or whatever. I recently got a request or I saw like on Facebook or social media or whatever it was. One of the local teams, and again, we live in a somewhat affluent area, Pawleys Island, everybody kind of has money. Um, and I say that eh, not in literally, but seemingly. And the team actually won the state or whatever, and then they sent a request to, like, a GoFundMe, like, "Hey, we're going to state, and we need to buy uniforms, and we need to go to the hotel, and we need to do this and do that." And, just growing up the way I did and coming from nothing, like North Charleston, not having money, not having anything like that, I mean, I balked at it, like, "Wait, what?" Like, you're already in an affluent area, you're playing year-round travel ball, a billion teams, and now you're asking other people to pay for it. So I get it, why they're doing it, because it does become unsustainable, but I also was kinda like you, when I'm not I mean, I have to pay for my own kid's stuff who's not on that team. I'm not gonna help pay for you to do yours.
Well, that may
But
be more for the parents like me whose kids have gone to college and they're done and just kinda
yeah,
supporting the
yeah, and
sport, which
that's
I get, I get
yeah.
that aspect. But yeah, if I had young kids, with 2 kids especially playing sports, I did help out here and there, but I couldn't help everybody out because it does get expensive. So, I understand you on that aspect 100%. So, this is going to be interesting to watch your journey. I'm so excited to watch it with you and your kids now. I can't wait.
I can't wait to see we should do another podcast in 10 years to see if I actually went
See
back and
exactly where
did
you are.
everything I told people not to do.
However, your kids are not gonna be under 6 foot tall, so there's more of a chance for them in a couple different sports.
Yes, they got my genes. They're
But
gonna be
thank
tall
thank goodness I still get yelled at from my kids, for that sore. Anyway, so what I was thinking is when you're watching your own kids now, do you feel the pressure to do it right? Like, where do you feel in that? Because now I know you have the pressure of, "All right, I'm on the outside. I've always watched these kids. I've always supported the kids. Now I'm the parent."
Yeah, 100%. And I have found myself kind of like flaking a little bit on some of my previous opinions.
Not so easy when you're the parent, is it, Dave?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I still sit back and I see these other parents on these and they're doing the, back-to-back seasons and, playing every single sport and doing all that stuff. And, and my wife and my wife played college softball, and so she played soccer and softball and everything growing up year round, indoor, because they were in Maine, so they did mostly indoor stuff. But so she and I even debate on, like, she wants him to do anything and everything all the time. And I'm constantly pushing back saying, no, we got to be very careful about this because not only, I mean, obviously you've got the overuse injury stuff, and there's so many issues that you can research on Johns Hopkins, whatever. You can Google, you can ChatGPT, any of the overuse injury stuff starting at young age, and they actually have guidelines and stuff now that tell you like how many hours per week, how many things you can do. There's so much more evidence on that now.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt there because now here's my question. So now my theory is you kinda try the sports to see what they like, and then you focus on that. But as you know, my kid was 7 days a week, almost 5 of them with you. And he was young. So, are you talking specifically about a child trying different sports, or are you talking about a child dedicated to one sport, or both?
So the overuse injuries usually come more so for the kids who specialize super early. I definitely am I'm definitely a huge pusher of, like, yeah, trying all the different sports, do them all, just have fun. Cause that's honestly, to me, that's what the most important thing is. Two things, two things, have fun, and then focus on your individual skills because yeah, you want them to learn team stuff, you want them to have friends, you want to do all that stuff. But ultimately, I used to tell all my kids, even today, when somebody asks me, like, hey, I got this young kid, he wants to go to college, he wants to do this and do that. What should he really be focusing on? And I always tell him, like, hey, speed. I don't care if you can throw a football. I don't care if you can throw a baseball. I don't care if you can make a jump shot. If you can run a sub 4.5 40, any team is going to give you a shot. You know what I mean? So focus on your technique, your form, your running, your speed, and everything else will kind of come into play. But I always have to be very careful in my opinions because I'm a bit of an anomaly. I never played organized sports. The first time I ever played was in the ninth grade. I played my first year of JV basketball. I literally had never played a single organized sport up to that point, and I still signed a scholarship to play basketball. So I have this mindset that your first formative years are really not that important. It's have fun, try hard, try to get better every single day, and focus on your individual skills. I mean, obviously you got to know the game and things are changing quite a bit. But if you didn't play on the political stuff that people talk about, well, if you don't play on this team, then they're not going to pick you for the next team and this and that. Like that stuff to me is false because if you're good enough at no matter what age it is or what level you are, they're going to take you. So focus on getting better and having fun, not what team you're on or whether you're doing it year round or whatever. Focus on your health. But I remember like it was yesterday, when I first actually played organized basketball, I went out, I made the team. I was like, okay, that was my first tryout. I made the team. Great.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
not so normal,
that's
as
it's
you know.
granted, I was also 6'6", okay, so it helps a little bit, I get that, but, I remember getting into practice right away, and, like, we start learning these drills, and they're doing these things, and I just a dumb kid, I raised my hand, and I was like, "Hey, coach, how do I do that? What about illegal defense?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And then everybody looked at me and laughed at me like I was an idiot, but, like, I was a huge NBA fan and Michael Jordan and the Bulls fan, and so I watched a lot of NBA and that was a thing. Illegal defense was a thing in the NBA. So I'm like, well, I can't do that because illegal defense and this and that. And they're like, what in the world are you talking about?
You were more educated than they were.
But again, it didn't matter because I grew up playing basketball every day, all day at the parks, playing here, playing there, challenging anyone that would take my challenge.
And hence, that's how you became better.
That's how I got better. Every day I got better and better, and I beat the bigger people and the better people, and then after that, all I had to do was learn the actual rules and and the other stuff. So I'm not saying don't play young youth sports, organized sports, or anything like that, but I definitely think there's an element that's missing when you make every team you pay for.
Yeah, I can see that. I can understand that. Now, in your journey, what would be your probably most memorable moment in sports or coach or training that, kind of was like a turning point in your life, if there was one?
I mean, a turning point, I guess probably was once I actually got to college, because, I loved basketball more than anything in the world. It was a safe place for me. It's where I went when if I was upset about something, if I was bored about something, it didn't matter. That's where I went to kind of do my thing, and be with my friends and do whatever. And you know, it was always fun to me. Even though I was working hard, I was trying to get better, I was playing on the high school team, trying to, do the best I could. Once I got to college, and so maybe there's some benefit to these organized as doing young because it becomes more work, right? It's more regimented and it's more. So maybe they get you. Maybe I would have gotten used to that, before I went to college had I done that. Now there's obviously the burnout thing. A lot of people are saying they get burnout. Well, that's kind of what I'm leading to. Once I got to college, immediately it was, "Okay, well, you've gotta go and do your one-on-one training in the morning at, like, 6 AM with the coaches. Then you're gonna eat breakfast, and you're gonna go to class, and then, at lunchtime, you're gonna go lift weights with the team and eat lunch and then go back to class, and then you have practice from 3:30 to 6, and then you gotta eat dinner, and then you got study hall from, 8 to 9 or whatever it is, and that was every single day.
Oh, yeah, the boys still yeah, yeah. My boys had the same type of schedule.
By the way, here's a playbook that's this big, and you need to memorize all these playbooks." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Give me the ball and get out of the way. Like, what are you talking about?" Like, so it wasn't fun anymore. I was burnt out at that point just of,
And that's what actually I find from a lot of the players that I've come into contact with is I know for sure my kids found it as I mean, I remember Cody calling it hell semester of that because it was just, morning, noon, night, weekends, 24/7, along with schoolwork. It's a lot. So I understand why people, when they want to hire, they take an athlete because they can do it all. You have to do your sports and you have to do your education. It's tough, so I completely get it. It takes a lot.
it takes a special person, kid, athlete to really make it once you get there, once you're good enough and you get there to make it through, do the whole thing, and then, obviously there's the one percenters who go on past that and do the professional thing, but the reality, and this is, I think there's a question in there about what do you want parents to know, going into this. Everybody hears the reality of like, oh, well, 1% only go to the pros, so you're not going to play pros or whatever. But I think it's like more than 75% of kids will never play sports again after the age of 13. You know what I mean? So I hear these random stats. So where I work now in the health system, I work with sports medicine fellows, residents who want to go into sports medicine. And he one of the fellows told me recently, and I'd never heard this stat before, and I may butcher it, so you might have to look this up and fact check me, but it was something like 99% of men will never do another sprint after the age of 30. And I was like, what? How is that how is that even a real stat? I mean, obviously I grew up playing sports and I love sports and I went into it, into my career for the exercise and the health benefits and the
Yeah, but you're a fitness nut. You're a fitness advocate, and so is your wife. So that I will say that I hear from a lot of men because when I started, my organization, it really is to support parents, and I have 50-year-old men saying, "I wish we would have had this, when I was, when it was back when I was younger." And I've heard that from almost everybody I spoke to. So I completely get it, 100%.
And so it goes into the parenting aspect of this whole thing, really you're getting to the point of why are you doing this? What are you trying to teach the kids?
And is it the kid or is it you?
Are you doing this for them? Or are you doing this for you? Kind of thing. I just want my kids to have fun. I want them to get some exercise out of it. I want them to I'll give you a good example, and of me dealing with this as a parent now. So, my oldest son, Preston, is playing soccer, baseball, basketball. He's doing it all. I'm letting him try it all. He's doing tennis.
Oh, so the wife won. Your wife won is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. Oh, she's pushing the baseball hard because, that was her love. Um, but, he's doing soccer. He really wanted to do soccer because his friends are on that soccer team. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're going to do soccer. Me, as a coach, as a trainer, whatever, I'm thinking, okay, well, all the best Hall of Fame athletes of any sport in the world, they grew up playing soccer. They had great footwork, they had great
Kicker and,
stamina, they do all
the
that stuff.
run, the kicking, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm like, yes, let's go play soccer. I would love for you to play soccer. So he plays the season, and he's doing pretty well. And he's only 7, by the way. And they get closer to the end where it's like, the rankings and you're gonna get into the playoffs kind of thing. And um he and one other kid were their 2 best goalies, but they rotated them. They let him do everything, not just goalie. He didn't really wanna play goalie, though. He wanted to be he idolizes Lionel Messi. He's wearing all the Messi jerseys, he's doing the whole thing like all the kids, and, so he wants to do that. Well, the other kid broke his arm, so now it comes down to just him being the goalie and, in order to win because he was the next best option. And which is fine, right? I get that, but it got to a point where he had to play the whole game as goalie, and I knew Preston did not want to do that, and was adamant that he did not want to do that. And so we're watching the soccer game, and I see him go back and forth to his coach in between every quarter. He would run over and take off his goalie jersey and his gloves, and then the coach would be like, "No, no, 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 put it back on." And so I was getting very upset sitting on the sidelines, and I tell my wife, I'm like, "Hey, you need to go talk."
That's this is a net yeah, this is a good topic right here.
Because I'm trying to, I've been on the other side as the coach, so I'm trying to be very, like, mindful of I don't wanna be that parent. I want the coach to do the coaching. I'm just gonna do the thing. And, you know, so I watched that happen in the middle of the first quarter, then the second quarter, and the third quarter, and like, he just literally never takes him out of the goal, and he whatever. And my wife went and talked to him, but she didn't I didn't know this at the time, but she didn't actually call him on it. She just was over there talking to him or whatever. And when we went to leave, so this is another thing that really gets me. This soccer match, team match, game is in the middle of the week during school. It didn't get over until 8 p.m. He's 7.
No, and you see that happening more and more, Dave, though, this is just the beginning for you to see. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
100%.
becoming the norm. How is
It
that
is
the
the
norm that
norm.
your 7-year-old is playing a sporting event until 8 p.m.? And so anyway, now the match is over and everybody else is leaving, and now my son's out there kicking the ball with one of his friends trying to kick goals and trying to, do all these tricks with the thing, and I'm like, "Hey, Preston, we gotta go. It's time to go now." And, he's like, "But no, no, I wanna play, I wanna play, I wanna play with my friends." So he's feeling like he didn't get to play, even though he played the whole game as goalie. But he's trying to do the fun stuff now, and I'm thinking like, "Hey, it's 8:15 now, we gotta go. You got school tomorrow," whatever. So I basically had to drag him off. He was crying the whole ride home. Then we got home, and I'm trying to, like, teach him, like, you have to do what the coach says, whatever. You're the best option, you want your team to win, right? You wanna be a part of the team, and then he starts telling me that, like, well, he promised. He said that I was gonna go in and I didn't get to go in. That's why he was upset. And actually I take that back. He didn't tell me that at first. He started to act out. He started to really act out and cry, and then he started like hitting me, which he'd never done before. He was really, really upset about this.
Just so frustrated, he didn't know what to do with his own emotions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I finally had to sit him down and talk to him and be like, this is not normal. Like, what's going on? And he told me, he was like, "Well, he said he promised he was gonna put me in, and then he didn't," so at that point, I just called the coach, and to the coach's credit, he took the call and, we talked it out, and he, admitted, like, "Sometimes I let my competitiveness get the better of me." Yeah, so I had to explain, to him that in my opinion, it's not appropriate, for to really be worrying about the win or loss. Nothing is as important as him just having fun. And, as I just told you before, I had to tell him the only reason I signed him up was to get exercise. The footwork, the actual soccer part of it, is really what I wanted him to get out of it, because I know he's the odds of him being a 6'6" soccer player,
Yeah.
in the future is
David, I have to tell you, I am like blown away and so highly impressed because I almost expected you to be on the flip side because you are such a, I mean, you play tennis, you play basketball, and we're not talking at a low level. We're talking at a really high level where you've won awards and everything else. So, one of my processes is, making sure parents aren't living vicariously through their kids or pushing them. And I am just blown away what an amazing father you are because with your background, I tend to see fathers pushing really hard. So that is a major kudos to you. Huge,
well, thank you,
huge,
I
David.
guess. Um, yeah, it's just,
So
I mean, like I said, now don't get me wrong, once he gets old enough and he wants to specialize, once he
but that's
chooses,
it. Once you get old enough and you choose, it's work.
yeah,
100%.
that's fine. Then I'll be there for him and I'll be that guy pushing him
But
and
it's
making
his
sure he's getting the
choice
right
with your
things.
knowledge and it's, you supporting him versus, him playing
Right.
for you,
Right. And
which is
here's
where
I'll
I
give you
find the problem.
another example, and I know this is a triggering thing sometimes, but people the whole everyone gets a trophy thing, but yesterday, so the last 2 days there was a football camp, it was no, just skills camp, it was for football. I'm not a I'm definitely don't really want him to play football. If he chooses to play
Yeah,
football,
I
I'll
wasn't
let
loving
him.
that sport either.
I
Not for
obviously
mine.
the injuries and all of that stuff, I don't really want him to go down that path, but, he's at this point, they're playing two-hand touch, and they're doing skills, and they're exercising, and they're doing all that stuff. The camp was great. The school did a really good job. The kids who taught it did a really good job. But yesterday I went and actually watched, and it was the last day of the camp, and, um again, leaving the thing, he was very upset, and I was like, "What is wrong?" And he's just like, "Well, I didn't get an award," and I was like, "Yeah, well, everybody doesn't get an award," and he was like, "Well, a bunch of people did," and, like, I was like, "Well, what did so and so get?" And he was like, "Oh, the best listener award, and the best this award, and the best that award," and I'm like, So I'm having to explain to him like, "Hey, you did a great job. You know, you tried your best. You got exercise in. You did really, really good. It's not about the awards, but again, it just makes me question like it's a 2-day skills football camp. Why are we giving awards for this? Something you paid for. We paid to go have him go do this thing and like
You'll find that with all of the camps, and I don't know if that's an aspect of, kind of like an automatic completion of something, but I do agree. It does have kids walking out going, "What?" But on the flip side, I don't think everybody, deserves an award. I remember when my child, went through those things that, they play church ball, and they would bring up something and they would say somebody else won that, and I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Do you think they deserved it?" Or, "Oh, well, yeah." "Oh, okay. Were you probably in that category?" "Well, no." So it was a process of, "All right, I get it. They probably shouldn't have these, but do you think that person should have got it?" "Well, yeah, they were really supportive," so that won't be the first time you encounter that. So I understand what you're saying. Just trying to give you some foreknowledge on that. It's not the first and it won't be the last.
and again, that now I'm having to learn life lessons in coaching. I'm having to coach my son, even with the soccer incident. My coaching to him now is like, hey, regardless of what happens on that soccer field, this is not an appropriate response. Regardless of whether your coach got you in or he didn't, this is not an appropriate response. So I'm not putting this all off on the coaches and stuff. It's life lessons all around. It's really good.
Even for the parents, you will have to have you will see that when it comes to the parents on the field, you will have some interesting conversations or you'll have some interesting insight.
What's really funny about that soccer incident is the very next day when we had the playoff game. He did let him get into the game. He played the first quarter as goalie, and they were being shut out, or he was shutting them out, and then he went into the game to play in the field, and me and my wife were both sitting there going like, "Please, please, please
I've
don't," you
been
know,
there.
like, "Don't let them score, like, 3 goals on us while he's out just to and
You got a
luckily they
whole different
didn't.
level of praying when it's your child, isn't
Right.
it?
So it all worked out. He got to play, they didn't score while he was out of the goal, and, everything
Well,
went
Dave, I'm
great.
highly impressed because I really did think you'd be that competitive dad. So I mean, which you are, but in a healthy way, which is super rare. Again, especially with someone with your background and your wife's. To be
Yeah.
honest, I didn't know she was a high level when it came to
She's
sports.
definitely
Also,
more competitive than I am.
well, you guys are doing an excellent job so far. I will be around the corner if you ever need.
And we will be calling for sure, for sure.
Now, have you ever run into a situation where you know a kid's playing for the wrong reason, i.e., parents? I mean, hey, and if sometimes I think when my kid started with you, it was because he was the only one on his team that was not so great, and that is something he really wanted. Should we have pursued that at such a young age? I don't know, but we did, and luckily we found you. So, what is your thought on that? Or have you run into that? Or was it me?
No, 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 you guys did an amazing job. I think, like you said, you knew at a young age he just loved the game, he loved the sport, and it had a positive effect on him. I think that's the most important thing is
It was really you and the village, which I will tell every family, get yourself a village for your kids because they will not always talk to the parents, and you want those people like Dave, and Dave was a huge anchor in our world as the village. And I know my sons leaned on you all the time, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did wanna make sure people know how important that is.
yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and it's definitely there's definitely and I'm sure you could go on and on and on about this, but there's a challenge of finding the right people, because it's really got to be about the relationship and just trying to do, what's best for the kids versus, hey, just training or just coaching or, you're going to be the best and you got to be here 5 times a week, or whatever, putting more pressure on the kid than they already had.
But as a parent, I made sure I had a relationship with you myself. That meant I spoke to you about things, I talked to you about things. And if it wasn't your speed and you weren't interested in that, because I'm sure some trainers are like, listen, I'm just here to train, which is cool. It's not their job. You just happen to be a huge support system, which in turn progress to relationships that my kids have had with you for now, what, almost gosh, literally almost 20 years? I mean, Cody's gonna be 24. So, well, a little less, but yeah, you get the point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's a huge thing for sure. Like you said, get the village because the kids, while they love you and they look up to you, they don't listen to you. I saw it again firsthand, and it's so frustrating at times. So you got to have the relationship with the coach as well, so you can talk about it. But um, my son and I actually went and played golf 2 weekends ago, I think it was, with his baseball coach and his son and we all had a great time and it was just good all around. The kids had fun, they hit the ball, and we played well, fortunately, which made it better. But one of the Preston's biggest, drawbacks, which is all of ours, like, he doesn't keep his head down, right? He just has a very good swing, but he doesn't keep his, body forward and his head down, and I had told him this a million times. I probably said it 20 times that day, and just in one ear and out the other ear, "Shut up, dad, God," and then all of a sudden, his baseball coach his baseball coach says, "Hey, do you mind if I say something?" I'm like, "No, please, go ahead." He walks over, he gets in front of him, he's like, "Hey, Preston, when you hit, you wanna put your head down and keep it down and do your thing or whatever," and of course, he's like, "Yeah," and he puts his head down, he stays down, and he crushes the ball, and he does it great, and I'm like, "Oh, of course," so,
I was really smart to get you. I had a village really young. So, have you run into an incident where you have seen a kid do it for the wrong reasons? Or maybe a parent?
maybe not necessarily in sports, but definitely, like, in the training realm of because I didn't just do athletes, I did non-athletes as well and stuff like that. I definitely saw a lot of, parents pushing unfit kids in, and you gotta get in shape, and you gotta do this, so they were being forced to kinda come and train, and that never goes well.
I don't think it works well in sports either. That's a whole other subject, but yeah.
No, I mean, there may have been a few kids where maybe the parents had money, so they're just kinda having them go train, and they didn't really want it to train or even for the sport, but I usually kinda weeded those out.
Did you have parents I'm curious, did you have conversation with parents about that? "Listen, this may not be a" Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of coaches out there like myself. There are some that will do it just because it's money, it's the money thing or whatever. I need clients, kind of thing. But I ultimately, and that was not just with the kids, not just with the athletes, but like even in my normal training sessions, when people, and even being at a wellness center where there's and kind of an elderly population, sometimes people just want to come in and just be talked to, and just have like that whatever. And that was not for me. I wanted people who wanted to be there. They wanted to train. They wanted to actually get better. So if I had kids that were doing that and they were only there because their parents were making them be there, I immediately just talked to the parents and said like, "Hey, I think you need to find another trainer." Because I want to help them and whatever, but they're not in it. They're not into it. They don't want to be here. And I'm not going to sit here and babysit or like, force somebody to do something they don't want to do. But if there was any even just an inkling of like, hey, they really do want to get better at the sport, or or there was a reason that they were doing it, self confidence, whatever. I would take that challenge and try to coach them up and like help as best I could.
And you definitely help with my sons, both of them, 100%. And I still have a younger one who's a little angry at you because he didn't get as much time as the older, but that's okay. We'll have to move past that. We're just gonna have to move past
I
that.
still feel guilty about that, but
Oh, good. I can use the guilt angle.
there you
Wonderful.
go. There you go.
So now, if you had one thing to tell parents, what would it be?
I mean, I would go back to the kind of the stats that I was saying, before. just realize that this is not their life. This is not what's gonna bring them joy for the rest of their life. This is not what's going to make them who they are. You know, lifelong sports are better in my opinion. Stuff that you can do with them, stuff that they can continue doing the rest of their life versus maybe football. You're never ever going to play that again after, whatever. But like I said earlier, 75% of kids don't play sports again after the age of 13. So,
And the drop-off's even worse after college. As soon as they get in, you had explained the perfect scenario where they're in and the work is not what they thought it was. Not that they couldn't do the work, but it took the love of the sport away.
right. And again, it's very sports specific, but I'll give you another example, and I can give you tons of these. Now, this may be more of a sports specific thing. Because some of the individual sports are obviously a lot different than team sports. But I would tell parents like, "Hey, y we already know the data, all right? So it's not a lifelong thing for them. They're not gonna be playing sports forever. They're likely gonna stop doing it." But for some of these parents who are paying a ton of money and doing all this stuff, one big thing that the reason I don't wanna do a lot of the year-round stuff and really just play for every single team and all that stuff is because I don't want my son to think everything is about him. You know what I mean? Like, I see a lot of parents who, you know, miss out on family events or don't have a social life themselves anymore because they're taking their kid every single week, every single weekend is dedicated to the kids' travel, the kids' team, the kids, whatever. Don't get me wrong, I wanna support my kid and I wanna give him every opportunity, but I don't want them to get the impression that it's all about me. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? They need to know family is important, friends are important. You shouldn't be missing out on a social life or other things just because I want to play this sport. But the example I was going to give is tennis. So I've seen this a lot more in tennis, maybe golf and some other individual sports. It happens as well. But I've seen where parents literally did exactly what you did, gave their kid every single opportunity, paid for countless hours of one-on-one sessions, clinics, getting the best coaches in the world to fly in to train their kids and sending them to camps, like actual academies. And because this is really what they wanted to do, they're going to go to college and play. And obviously the you still got even most parents are still they know they're not gonna be pros, right?
And there are different levels, and that's another conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, but what I've seen is many of these kids who did that became really, really good, had an opportunity to take a scholarship to go play tennis at a school and say, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to this other school and I'll just play club tennis because that's where my friends are going,
I've
and
heard of that too.
that's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna be,
Especially in South Carolina, I've heard of that awful lot.
I would be irate, if I paid hundreds if I had thousands of dollars, over a 15 or 20-year period for them to be the best because this is what they wanted to do, and then they say, "Oh, I'm not gonna take that free ride to go play at this smaller D1 school. I'm gonna go pay to go to Clemson or wherever because
I've
this
seen
is where
that
my friends
also
go."
100%. Yep, you're right, I've
So
seen that. Well, that and we actually had conversations with our sons, especially our oldest, about that really early because most of his friends, I'd say 98% of them went to the same college. And it was a conversation of, "Listen, you're more than welcome to, but understand this is a D1 level, and the chances of us playing here," although there could be a spot for everybody, there's so many different levels from, D1 to NAI, so there's just a ton. But if you're planning to go to this college, chances are we will probably not be playing basketball. So you may have to be in a different state. Is that something you're open to? And both of mine were. Again, and it was younger, but we wouldn't, like, you know, rehash these conversations, but we would bring them up periodically, And we did, I did do a thing of sending them to different camps so that we would see what they were like away and try different things over the years. So, was this realistic? Was everybody on the same page? Were they going to be able to live outside of South Carolina? So we did test it, and we were there, but that was definitely a thought that was always floating around my mind because there was no way he's going to play for SC or USC. Not going to happen. But you had to kinda know that. You have to kind of the stats are 1% play.
Right. So it goes back to the beginning. What are you doing it for?
Now my son was all in, so he did. He went to boarding school, he went to college, he played, and he will probably still play basketball like you do with the guys, have out it's just part of who he is. The love of it from when he started with you to now, completely different. Completely different.
And, I'll just so everybody on here hears, I tell your son's story, both of them, but I mean, especially Cody's, his story, just the, leaving where he was playing, not really getting the success he wanted at the school where he was at and all his friends were and all of that stuff and wanting to come and play for me, leaving that to come and play for me was a huge decision and I did not want y'all to do it. I didn't want that pressure. I didn't want that, um, but at the same time, it gave him an opportunity, to really showcase and kinda see like, "Okay, now I'm the guy, and I'm gonna show you that I've been working hard and I'm doing it." And then what does he do? He steps in and he just crushes it. I think that first home game, he had 19 points in the first quarter, and you're
Right.
talking about somebody who just got cut or didn't make wasn't getting the
Because
success.
he was a smaller kid, we all knew that, but, yeah, yeah, no, so giving him that opportunity, Dave, was huge because it gave him the confidence and it gave, exposure, confidence, levels, and, all kinds of stuff, so having your coach believe in you, having someone support you is a game changer.
Oh, yes. Right spot,
100%.
right there's a right spot for everyone, and sometimes you just gotta find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we could be talking about this all day because I love talking to you, but I'm so impressed with your fatherhood because I knew you'd be a great dad, but I thought you'd be a highly competitive dad. So I'm very excited and so proud of you. And not that you need me to be, but
Thank you. No,
thank you
I
so much.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming. And is there anything that you want to share as far as where to, watch you? I do know you have another podcast. You're a fitness trainer. Is there anything you would like to highlight for people to follow you, to find you? Or are you just so busy? Not really.
I mean, not really. Mostly what I'm working on right now outside of my career and working in the health system, is just that invention. My product will be coming out. I wish it was there.
Oh, well, let us know. Let me know. We'll have you back on so you can talk
Yeah,
about
I'm
it.
waiting on that patent to be, fully approved before I do any kind of, advertising on it or
I
whatever,
do
but
know it's a fitness product. So
it
definitely
is
let's talk about it when it is ready to go. I'd love to.
absolutely. I'll be back on for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave, for coming.
Well, thank you. Good luck.